Hey guys, welcome to Grow Fast, Grow Smart, the PI Playbook by Accelerator Law Consultants. I'm Micki Love, President and Chief Client Strategist at CJ Advertising and co-founder of Accelerator Consultants. With me today is our other co-founder and partner at Dudley DeBosier, actually managing partner, right, Chad?
That's right. Good to be here. This is fun. Finally getting this off the ground.
I know, it's super exciting. I know you and I have a huge passion for teaching firms, all about growing law firms. So what was it that made you want to start doing consulting so many years ago?
Well, I've always been analytical. I've always been kind of OCD about how good can we get. My background. I grew up playing competitive tennis. Was nationally ranked, internationally ranked. Wanted to play pro, and ultimately played Division I college. But I was always like, okay, how can we improve this part of my game? How can we get a little faster, a little stronger, hit the shot a little bit better? How do you play smarter and all these things? And I would track everything, how much I worked out, how much I ate, how many weights I lifted, how much I played tennis versus all the stuff, right? And I'd say, okay, well, when I play well, I do these things. And so when I got into the law practice, I kind of brought a lot of that stuff over and just going, okay, well, this is be disciplined. Be purposeful, be intentional. Ask yourself, what am I doing that is getting me the results that I can get? And I started going down this, studying how law firms work and how personal injury firms work. And I always say this over and over, I think one of the things, and you've seen this, Micki, is that the things that really change us or make us better are the people we meet and the books we read. And by books we read, sometimes it's going to conferences, sometimes it's listening to podcasts, sometimes it's these other things. But I know I've been impacted by people, then people that are getting results that I want to get, and them sharing how they got there has been tremendously impactful, and accelerates your growth. And so when I was getting some good, first thing I did was study people at our office that were getting some crazy results. What were they doing? Systematized it. And then it was cool to go apply these concepts at other law firms and see them get great results. And that was how my life in the consulting world started. And since that time, it's been amazing. It's been incredible. And I've gotten to work with so many just great, cool firms, solo owners, handling a few files, to massive firms that are signing up crazy number of cases and everything in between. And it's just been fun. I mean, I wouldn't do it unless I loved it, and I love it.
Yeah, same. So much
That's
about
your
the work.
background too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
didn't you learn from? I mean, you've been probably, we joke like who's been in more firms, who's seen more numbers. I mean, I think we've both been in a crazy number. Is that kind of where you learned? I mean,
Yeah.
how to
I was
run
so
law firms,
fortunate.
visiting other
Yeah.
firms.
Yeah. Well, and it all started with some like financial comparison groups that we were in too. Like I was very lucky to be at the table with some of the really smart PI firms across the country. Dudley DeBosier being one of those firms, but some of the biggest in the industry, and being able to listen to what smart people were doing, like you said, and then take it back and how do we make it better? How do we track it? How do we systematize it? For me, that was fun. Like, how do we improve upon what we just heard and make it make sense for our team, for our clients, and then to grow the firms that we were working in and for? So, and then to be able to take that to other firms has just been a real blessing for me. I learn something every time I get to visit with another firm. I feel like I grow a little bit each time, and it's just amazing. One of the things that you said that struck me was the books we read. So,
Mhm.
tell everybody about Dudley the Bookshelf and why you have Dudley the Bookshelf.
Yeah, I've been a big reader since, gosh, I think the second, third, fourth grade. I just loved reading, and just could get lost in it. And as I got older and got into the business world, I tend to read probably less fiction and more, business, personal growth, um, other topics along those lines. How can we do things better? And so I still read. Whenever I read, I find that I have to take notes, because if not, my mind wanders. And so since, back in the day, I used to just take handwritten notes when I read books. I probably could find a few of those journals around here somewhere, but gosh, for the last 7 or 8 years, I just type up my notes as I'm reading. That sounds like a lot to many people, but I do. And it helps. And so I have these book summaries, and we call it Dudley to Bookshelf. And so there's people out there that are on a email list to receive those summaries when I finish a book, and it goes out. And so it does it replace the book? Absolutely not. It just tells you, should I read this book or should I not? Should I move on to something else? But definitely can get some good ideas and concepts from those summaries.
Yeah, and it's not always just legal books. You read a lot of books that are related to other businesses that are not inside of our industry, and I think you take a lot away from those and share those, and then you come up with ways to apply that to the legal practice, which always amazes me. And so I learn a lot from you every time you do one of those, and I appreciate it. But one of those principles that um, I feel like you did that with, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the first person I ever heard talk about it, and really the first person I've seen apply it to the legal industry was the Pareto principle. Did you read about that in a book? And is that
Yeah,
still
no,
information?
absolutely. I'd read about it a long time ago. Gosh, I think about, it's 2023. This must have been back in 2009 or 10. And we're just going, um, you know, conceptually, we go, okay, you know what? There's cases that require more of our time, effort, energy, and attention. That doesn't mean that the client is worth less or that the client should get treated any less. Every client should be treated with absolute amazing client service. There are cases where more effort and energy from the attorney from the firm can impact the result more. And I'd read, gosh, it might have been the 80-20 principle. There's so many books about the Villafito Pareto. And so I started going, how do we apply that? And I go, you know what, let's look at uh, our 20% of our best cases last year. Did it generate 80% of our revenue? And as I started looking more and more, I was like, holy cow, it does. And you kind of start studying it, and then you go, okay, well, how do we find those? And what is a profile for a Pareto? We start calling it the Pareto point. And that meaning, okay, that's the point at which cases over that amount typically are 20% of your cases that generate 80% of your revenue. And we're like, all right, let's get fanatical. How about we do this? No one's going to settle those cases unless they run it by somebody else. And that's how the valuation committee was born. And we started seeing some crazy results, and then saw those results get repeated. And then where that's gone, we call it the super Pareto point, where the top 5% of your cases tend to generate 50% of your revenue, and zero in on those. And it's been amazing to see how much our average settlement for our clients has gone up over the years by being intentional about these concepts. And then also so cool to see other firms implementing these concepts all over the country. I think you run into it. We've seen it either speakers at events, or you go visit a firm and they're doing these things, and you're like, man, this is the impact that it's had has just been, I could not have foreseen it.
Yeah, it's amazing, which brings me to one of the things that I really wanted to concentrate on today. I know at Dudley DeBosier, you guys really concentrated in maybe on the Pareto principle, but on several different aspects, which really, I think, led to the accelerated growth of your average fee. And so I wanted to talk to you today about this conference that you're bringing to the public. This will be your second year doing it for
Yeah.
increasing your average fee. Tell the public why this conference is so important, and what else can they expect to learn at the Increase Your Average Fee conference.
Well, it's probably about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, my partners and I, we sat around and we go, you know what? Um, we we want to think about the things that had the biggest impact, and we wrote down on a dry erase board, here's all the things that we believe positively impacted our average close fee. And we had like 20 things, and we said, let's narrow it down to what are the 10 most impactful things that we've done. And we had 10, and then we said, okay, if we were going to forget the order that we did these things in, what is the order we would tell somebody to do them in? If we could just hit the reset button, and then we move things around. Hey, this should go first, and so what we ended up having is like a list of 10 things that we implemented at our firm that we believe had the biggest impact on our average close fee. And we said, okay, that's kind of cool. We've talked to people about how to implement this in terms of a management standpoint. We've talked to attorneys on how does all this work and why do we do these things? But we never really had an event where we tied it all together and just said, okay, here's the whole process. And we said, okay, and this event is not just for the attorneys handling the cases or the attorneys managing the firm, it's really for both to say, hey, here's this thing that we're trying to execute on. Can we all get on the same page as to why it's important to do these things and believe in these things? And so we put on a conference last year, Increase Your Average Fee, and we had firms from all over the country show up. We shared the details, the nitty gritty of how we executed on these things. I think I've no doubt, like, it took us 12 years to pull some of this stuff off. We're seeing firms get this stuff straight in like 2 years, and we're saving massive time, effort, energy in doing these things. And it's crazy how much you can accelerate the execution of this stuff if someone gives you the playbook. And so we're going to do it again this year. And while we're going to have some overviews of the things that we did last year, we have some new stuff planned that is super cool and very, very excited about. And, my partner, Stephen James, got a massive verdict, a $54 million verdict against a drunk driver that killed our client. And he's going to walk through how did we handle that case from the date that the phone rang to the date of verdict, and what that looks like, and how do you, each stage you go through. And we got some other speakers that are just phenomenal. And again, you're fighting for how can we get better results for our clients. And I think it's going to be a great conference.
Yeah, I know you talked earlier, you said there were 10 steps roughly to increasing your average fee, right? Accelerating your average fee.
Yep.
It's really hard, I think, for firms to realize, like, you guys perfected this over a number of years. It didn't happen overnight. And so if firms are looking for a way to do this overnight, what would your advice be to them? What would you tell them about their expectations?
I'd say what wins is it's consistent discipline over time. Doing the right things over time on a daily basis is where you really see the results. I get it. I want to implement things at the speed of light all the time. And while we try to push the envelope, you can sometimes break the system and cause a lot of chaos if you try to implement, or, we'll see. We put so much time, thought into so many of these things, and we got beat up by so many of these things that everything has a reason as to why we recommend you do it that way. And it just takes patience. We've seen firms, hey, I'm going to skip this first step because I don't know if that, and then it kind of bites them 3 or 4 steps down the road. Or, it's be patient. You just it's consistent discipline, methodical discipline, and you will get there. It is not a magic bullet. It's not like you go to the conference and you're going to have all this stuff lined out in 3 months. And if you feel that way, I would ask yourself a question: what kind of pressure are you putting on your team? Because I know, look, that's part of why there's some energy there. Like, Micki, you worked with these firms where there's some energy of leadership and the ownership that is awesome, and that's what got the firm to break through gravity, right? To break and get into the stratosphere. That same energy, when a firm reaches a little bit more stability, can cause some issues, and you got to kind of change it a little bit, right? And be a little bit more even keel. And I think so. If you think that you can go implement all this stuff in 3 months, I wish you the best, but I think you're making a big mistake.
I had the privilege last year after you guys did the conference of working with the firm. And, it was the simplest things that we found were the roadblocks for them. And I think firms often overlook some of these things that we talk about as being critical. But maybe you can shed some light on those for others right now, such as talking to your clients, which sounds so simple, but it's often overlooked as one of the keys to this process. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit for everyone?
Yeah, it was insane. So, number 4 of the 10 things is client communication. And really, client communication and file reviews is, what is your purposeful plan for how you're going to communicate with clients, and what are you going to do? Like, how often are you going to pick up the file and go, what do we need to do to move this thing forward, right? And everyone, it's one of those things that take these simple concepts, like talking to your clients is not a novel concept. It's not something that you're like, oh my gosh, we're bringing fire to the masses. It is, but how fanatical you get about a simple concept is important. Like, okay, we have a standard for, if a client signs a contract, they're going to hear from our firm with a certain amount of time, and they're going to hear from not only the attorney, but the legal assistant assigned to the file. They're going to get introduced. And then they cover these things. And then after that, there's, a survey that occurs and to see how that process went. And then, the attorneys, we have to make sure that they got visibility on how many files do they get assigned where they have not had that first call. Okay, cool. And then we're going to be purposeful in the first 90 days that we want to at least communicate with that client every 15. And then after 90 days, it goes to every 30. And then we want the attorney to pick up the file at least every 30 days and get with the legal assistant on the file to go, what are we going to do to add value, get it closer to resolution, or get a trial date on this case? What can we do right now on this file to move the needle in the next 30 days? And man, client communication is just the secret sauce. And it is, it increases referrals, increases positive reviews. It decreases time on desk. It adds to your average fee. It, just so many things, and firms just get so late. Like when you've been there, Micki, where we were talking to a firm and I said, are you serious? Like you really say the attorney should talk to their clients? I'm like, are you out of your mind? Of course. Yes. The attorney should absolutely talk to your clients. Are you, if you don't like talking to your clients, if you don't like people, this is not the
might be the
industry for you.
Yeah,
you're in their home. Because we're talking to people at some of their toughest times in their life, and you got to have a heart for people.
Yeah, the firm that I was able to work with after your conference to help them get some of these things implemented, we really were only able to, because it was late in the year last year when you guys held this conference, or later in the year. And in the time frame, it takes some time to get things rolling and get the team to buy in. Luckily for me, that firm had sent all of their attorneys to this conference, so they had heard it firsthand from all the attorneys that work at Dudley DeBosier that were there, from you guys. So it wasn't just the owner of the firm saying, hey, we're going to do this and this is why. So when I went back, we were able to get a lot more things implemented quickly, but we only really fully executed on 2 of those items on your 10-step last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we still were able to measure and could tell that we increased the average fee 30% just by implementing 2 of those items on that list. We didn't have to increase team members. We didn't have to spend more on advertising. We really didn't do anything other than get fanatical about how and why we were doing a couple of the steps in that process. And we were able to really recognize a 30% increase in our average fee. So it was amazing. And I just wish, I want every law firm to have this, because I love to watch law firms grow. Like that's my passion. I love to see it happen. And so it's exciting for me that you guys are bringing this back next year. What else?
No, I mean, I think one thing that we learned like early on as a firm is that there's actually an art. Like, okay, if you don't go to these conferences out there to make your firm better, to help make your attorneys better, then I think you're really putting your firm at a disadvantage, like a tremendous. So going is great, right? But there's actually, I think there's an art to going, there's an art to bringing stuff back. And so a lot of the times, like our general policy for how we look at this stuff is going, okay, unless we like just totally have bought in from the get-go, most of the time we'll do like, call it low cost probe. Can we send one person there to check it out and see if it's worth doing, right? And so we'll send somebody to a conference sometime. We'll go back and this is what we expect you to bring back. The top section action items that you think we should implement at our firm. Doesn't mean that we're going to implement them, but they're saying, hey, this was good stuff. And then we'll get, a summary by each section that was covered and then some notes. And there's a format that they bring it back. We talk about, or they come back and say, hey, that's not worth going to. I really didn't have much. But they come back and say, hey, this was a good one worth going to. And then we'll invest in that conference next year. And our plan is, can we get the person that is going to be doing this stuff? Can we get the person that is going to be managing this stuff all there at the same time? Because that gets everybody on the same page. And there's this kind of like, there is a rub when, if you go to a conference, and if you've been to one, you go there and you can hear the most amazing, crazy things. And you come back to the firm and goes, guys, here's what I recommend we do. I just went to this conference and we need to do this. And a couple of things happen, right? Sometimes you get the message wrong, and it doesn't sound quite right, and it sounds goofy, and it's just a mistranslation of whatever you intended to communicate. Yeah. Sometimes the team is like, you know what? I'm so tired of you going to conferences. You go to so many conferences a year. You come back, and I got fatigue, implementation fatigue, and then there's like this kind of almost like. But when we find that when teams go together, again, the implementers and the managers go together to these things, they all hear it, and then they can say, "Hey, look, you didn't hear that right," and or you can when you're talking the same language, and it is tremendously more impactful to your firm when you make that investment. And look, if you take your average close fee and you increase it by $5,000, run the numbers. It's going to more than be worth the investment. And that's where we notice, like, hey, firms that brought 5, 6, 7 attorneys, the impact that they had when everyone was getting on the same page then was so much greater than owners that came by themselves or leaders that came by themselves, went back and tried to go implement it.
Yeah. I heard a lot of great things from the attorneys that attended as well, that, we're not the owners, right? So they're the worker bees. They're in there every day making it happen for the clients and for the firm. And they were just fired up to hear other lawyers that do the same thing as they, day in and day out, tell them like, hey, this really does work. And if you implement this and get this right, like, it can really change your client's life, your life, and the firm's life, just by doing these few simple steps. And so for me, that was fun to see some fire in them, because a lot of times you're right. When the partners go away to these conferences and they come back, they're loaded with all these ideas, and everybody just kind of breathes a big heavy sigh, because it's like one more thing we have to implement. But I think this is different, because this is solely focused on the work that they do and how it can impact the people that they represent, which, they're all in this business to make a difference, I think, for their clients. And I think
Yeah,
giving them these tools to help with that is just, it's a bonus for them.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And so I think that, you look at these firms that have grown over the years, they definitely are purposeful about learning, right? And how they train. And so, like, that's our system that's worked for us. Like, we'll send one person, hey, that was good. Okay, let's really invest, get a bunch of people there so we can all drink the Kool-Aid together, so to speak, and then come back, and then implementation goes through the roof.
Yeah, one of the worst things I think firms can do is not train their team, and the team stays forever, right? Because then you're definitely not going to grow. Nothing's going to get better. It's just always going to be what it was. So I think giving them that opportunity to learn and grow together is super awesome.
Yeah, it
Tell me.
was, Arnie Malheim, our mentor and friend and visionary CJ that ran CJ for many years. One of our favorite quotes I know was, they go, Arnie, what would happen if we spent all this money on training and then these attorneys leave? And he goes, the only thing that's worse is that you spend no money on training and they stay. And so,
And that happens
yeah,
in firms every day.
yeah, and let's get better.
Yeah, let's do better. We can do better. We deserve better. So tell me, what kind of impact did Dudley DeBosier see on your average fee when you guys finally got this implemented? Like, as a percentage, what would you say
Increase
your?
almost, like, we're talking about, it's over 500% now. When we started this process in 2009 to today, we've seen an increase in our average fee by over 500%, which is
500%.
silly.
That's
It's
crazy.
not
Like,
even, yeah.
I mean, you guys have
And
been able to impact so many clients' lives with that kind of change in monetary awards for the clients, as well as your lawyers that work for you. Like, I'm sure if they're on any type of commission earning structure or bonus structure, like, that's a huge
yeah,
impact to their lives as well. And then the team, like, you can give more back to your team, and just that's impactful. So that's awesome. Congratulations.
you know what? Like, and I think one of the things is we talk about pursuing excellence and wanting to be great at what we do. Um, it's fun to be good at what you do. It's fun to get great results and be in the upper echelon of the results we get for our clients. And I think it tends to attract other people that think that way. If you're lackadaisical or lukewarm about your firm, you're going to attract lackadaisical, lukewarm team members and it's going to be tough to pull off some of this stuff. And so I know firms that when they started this process, hey, guess what? We're going to talk to clients now on this frequency, or we're going to implement this process to make sure, and they lose people. And yes,
Yes.
turnover is a bummer. It's not fun. I don't want anyone to, um, you know, leave, but what it tends to do is the right people tend to leave. The people that maybe aren't willing to put in that extra effort to be great. And so the guys that, sometimes it happens, but if it does happen, it often works out better because you're keeping the right people.
Yeah, I love that. I think you guys kind of did that uh, sort of like a Pareto analysis with your team members too, right? Like, would you enthusiastically rehire this individual? Like, you kind of look at that as well, right? Is that one of the things you guys do at Dudley
Well, yeah,
Benjamin?
absolutely. I mean, when we early on in the firm, we asked ourselves, if a family member called in for a needed representation, if your close friend called in and needed representation, would you feel totally at ease, regardless of who they talked to at the intake process, which attorney they got assigned to, what legal assistant they got assigned to, who they ran into at the lobby? Would you be totally at ease with anyone in your firm being involved in that representation? And if you go, man, oh, I hope they don't get so and so, or I hope they don't bump into so and so, then you got a problem. I mean, you got an issue. And can you look at every team member and go, yeah, I would enthusiastically rehire? And that's a phrase from Cameron Harold, who's just done some really amazing stuff and
Yeah,
growing companies. But
I
yeah, I
love
mean,
that.
if there's a hesitation, that's not enthusiastic, and going, that's what it takes. So you got to have a crew that you're just like, we all trust in each other to do great stuff. Does that mean we're perfect? Absolutely not. But it means that we're all aligned and that we're going to choose to pursue excellence.
Yeah, I love that. I think, every person in your firm is on the front line meeting the clients that you are wanting to represent, and that's carrying your brand. So how do you set things up so that they understand who your brand is, what you strive for? And I think that only comes from, really good communication and driving some of these points home that you guys really want to work on for your clients. So congratulations to your team down there for pulling off that amazing average fee increase. Like, that's phenomenal. I know it wasn't easy, but I think you're making it easy for everybody else by just kind of bundling this up and delivering it in a package where they can take it away and go implement this back at their own firms, which is awesome.
Well, thank you. We
Well,
look at it like, gosh, we've had some of our, our closest competitors, go and attend some of these things. And we still we share. We're an open book. It's our belief that if we make other plaintiff personal injury firms better, we're helping other plaintiffs, and that's a good thing. And
yeah,
that's good for our industry, and that's good in general, just for people that need attorneys. And so, if there's attorneys out there that want to do better, want to be better, we're an open book, and if we can help in that journey in any way, we're here.
I love it. I love it, Chad. So if other firms want to increase their average fee, I can't even speak today.
Mm-hmm.
Where and when can they catch this conference?
Well, the conference is going to be in Nashville on April 20th and 21st this year, Nashville, Tennessee, and come join us. And I think you can go to the Xcelerator website and see how to sign up and how to get plugged in.
Yeah, and are you guys offering a remote or virtual option if firms can't make the trip? Like, it's getting
Yes,
close
we
to
are.
that time, right? Like, is there a remote
That's
option
right.
for it?
Yes, absolutely. It's getting close. And if you like the thought of making travel arrangements is just overwhelming at this point. Get the remote or virtual and get all your attorneys and just say, hey, look, we're going to do this. We're going to spend a day listening to these presentations, and I think you see a tremendous ROI.
Do you also see benefit in administrators, like firm administrators, listening in to some of these sessions that you're talking about from
Yeah,
helping
absolutely. I
firms
think, like,
get-
when you've seen it, Micki, like when you're trying to pull off something, whatever the system is, whatever the process is, it takes the attorneys who are handling the cases. It takes the attorneys who are managing maybe the processes. It takes the operations people that are going to help figure out how to do all this and make it flow smoothly. It takes a lot of different people. And again, when they all understand, this is why we're doing this, this is why it's important, this is why you need this from me, it goes so much smoother. And so, look, first and foremost, owners and leadership should be there. If you can get attorneys that are helping you implement some of the stuff, they should absolutely be there. After that, if you're like, well, who else? COOs, other law firm administrators, that if they could just understand what is the goal of the firm. This is one of the most important things that we do, right? How do we continue to get better and better results for our clients? That's the core of what we do. And so I think no one's going to be, I don't think there's
Yeah.
anyone that would not benefit from it.
Yeah, don't forget those legal assistants and case managers working on
Oh
these
yeah.
cases
Oh
too.
my gosh.
They got to know what the attorney's trying
Yeah,
to do to help them
that's
get
a
there.
great
So,
point. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. I think have you seen this where, some of the firms that went, in terms of implementation, that they have actually brought the legal assistance into some of these concepts. And so when they're ranking the cases a certain way, or when they're trying to get the cases, value set on them, if they, okay, this is why we're doing it. And,
Yeah.
Again,
It just accelerates the whole process, right? Like makes it go so much smoother, so much faster when everybody's pulling in the same direction toward the same goal. I think it's amazing.
yeah.
Well, is there anything you want to close with today about this Increase Your Average Fee conference that we haven't
No,
touched
I
on?
hope to see I hope to see all the familiar faces and a bunch of new faces there. I think, again, the other great part of a lot of these things, when you have a conference like this, the people you meet there that you get to just talk to and build relationships and find out how are they doing this stuff at their firm. And so I think it's gonna be great. I hope to see everyone there, and you'll get your money returned tenfold from implementing these processes.
Easily tenfold. Well, like Chad said, we're an open book. So if you have questions or thoughts around this process or anything other related to running a personal injury law firm, be sure and hit us up. We're always happy to talk about this stuff or to help you through any issues. We've probably seen it. If we haven't, we would love to be involved in finding a solution for it because we like to learn as well. So anyways, we appreciate you guys joining us today. We're going to be doing a lot more of these podcasts for you guys, just on different topics around the personal injury world and all things related to running and growing law firms. So we appreciate you guys. And we're going to sign off here. But if you need more information about this conference, go to lawfirmaccelerator.com. We appreciate you guys. Have a great day.